Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are kicking off the Christmas DIY season with a collection of some of my favorite DIYs from the past. So I'm putting them all together in one video. So if you hear me say this is our first DIY multiple times, you'll kind of understand that. But I think they are worth sharing again. I've got lots in here, including some Christmas ornaments, which are my favorite to make for the Christmas season. I hope that you enjoy these. Let's get started. So to get started with our first DIY, I have this joy word sign from Hobby Lobby. I paid 99 cents for it on clearance. Unfortunately, when I was taking the sticker off, it kind of peeled off the surface, but that's okay. With what we're doing, you won't be able to tell. You can buy these different, it's like a cardboard type material. You can buy these at Hobby Lobby or even like Walmart. This particular one I was showing you had holes in the back to like hang it up with the nails if you wanted. I'm just going to do like a leaner sign, but you could also like make a base for it if you wanted. Anyways, we're going to coat this with some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I did water it down just a little bit because the paint's pretty thick. You don't want it to be watered down very much, and you may not need to water yours down at all, but you want to be mindful that this is like a papery cardboard material, so I didn't want it to like peel up or wrinkle. I'm going to give it one coat on the front. We're going to be putting something else on it, so I didn't do a second coat. I'm also going to paint all of the edges. I want this to look finished, and it will definitely look a little bit more high-end if all of the grooves and stuff are painted. I also painted the back here with like 2 coats because I wanted it to just, I figured white looked a little bit nicer than the brown cardboard. So we're now going to cover this with some Mod Podge of any kind. I'm using my dishwasher Mod Podge. No particular reason except for it was convenient to grab, and this was going underneath something, so I didn't really care so much about what finish it had. And we're going to do the iron-on method, so if you're not familiar with that, you want to make sure to give a good coat of Mod Podge, cover all of the edges, and let it fully dry. This is a way to add, we're going to use tissue paper, and this method makes it so that you don't have a bunch of wrinkles. I have this tissue paper, I believe it is from the Dollar Tree. I've been using it for DIYs for a couple of years now, but I think it's beautiful. And we're just going to lay that on top and then use some parchment paper and then an iron with no steam and just slowly go over it. I'm just kind of working my way over. I gave a slight little tug on the tissue paper to make sure it wasn't like buckling underneath. And this will reactivate the Mod Podge and cause a seamless like adhesion between the tissue paper. I'm just checking, pulling gently to make sure it was all stuck down, and it was. And I just absolutely love using this method. You do want to paint the surface though. That's why I painted some white, because it's tissue paper, so you can see through it, and I wanted the design to really pop. So then I went in with some scissors and just kind of cut into each of the spaces so that I could get in there to sand this down. So I'm using a sanding block on the larger surfaces and then an emery board here on all of the little in-between grooves. That works really, really well. I'm cutting the tissue paper at any of the angles so that I'm not tearing, and you just want to push away, sand away from the sign so that you're not pulling up on the tissue paper at all. And this gives a nice clean edge. You could also try to trim it off with like an X-Acto knife, but I love using this method and it works really good. And then for these tiny little places here, I'm using a piece of sandpaper. I end up propping up one end of the joy sign on like probably a bottle of paint, and then I'm just slowly pulling it through to just sand off those hard to reach edges, and it worked perfectly. So I just kept going around the whole thing, going back and forth between the sanding block, the sandpaper, and the emery board until I got a nice clean edge all the way around. And then we're going to seal it in again with some more Mod Podge. I don't always feel like it's as necessary. Oh, and I'm fixing a little spot there that didn't stick, you can see. I feel like the iron-on method really gives it a good seal because it almost is like it pulls the Mod Podge through the tissue paper. But for good measure, I decided to give this a coat of Mod Podge and just seal it in, especially around the edges, making sure everything was in there nice and good. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Leanne. I share budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel, and I hope that you consider subscribing before you leave so you don't miss out on my future videos. So I wanted to add just a little bit of detail. I thought about adding some greenery, but honestly, I really like this just as is, but I wanted to add a little bit of dimension. So I'm using antique wax. You could just use a brown paint, just make sure you don't have too much on your stencil brush. And first I emphasized all of the edges,
to kind of highlight, you know, make that stand out. And then I did a little bit across the whole thing to just kind of make it a little older looking and less crisp. And I love how this came out. I'll end up just kind of layering it between other decor pieces. And I really can't wait to pull this one out for Christmas. I might be DIYing, but I'm not decorating quite yet. But I love how that one came out. All right, so up next, I have this little, I don't know what you call it, kind of like an ornament, but it's from 4th of July. They're patriotic decor from Hobby Lobby. I bought it when it was 90% off, so I probably paid like 20 cents. So I took off the hanger and the bead, and I have this pack of paper also from Hobby Lobby. Lots of pretty paper, and the package is originally $5.99. I'm sure I got it like 40 or 50% off. And I'm just going to cut off a piece here that I thought would go really well. And we're going to just use this as an ornament. I don't know if it was I don't think you do ornaments for patriotic decor. I guess it might have just been, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I love buying stuff on clearance or at thrift stores that I'm like, I can make this over. So that's what this is. So we're going to give a good coat of Mod Podge. I'm not going to use the iron-on method for this one because the paper is pretty thick. Oh, I stuck a little piece of paper down in the hole to get out any Mod Podge because I didn't want it drying in there all gloopy and getting in the way later. Yes, I think I just said gloopy. So this paper is pretty thick, so I wasn't worried about it getting wrinkly. So I just placed this right on there and used my little roller. I think it's called a brayer. It's from Plaid, which is a company that creates Mod Podge. And once that was dry, I'm once again sanding away to get any of the edges of the paper off. And I'm also just kind of sanding the whole thing, but I was emphasizing getting the paper off. And then I'm just using a little pokey tool to recreate the hole. This is actually called a dotting tool. I picked it up at Dollar Tree. Pick up any of their little tools and gadgets and Cricut tools, even if you don't have any of those things, because I love the little sharp hook piece for things. And I use this little dotting tool a couple times in this video. They're just handy little things. So now I'm pulling some stickers. I think these might have come from Hobby Lobby. I tried to pick them up on clearance. And this little wooden snowflake. This came in a large pack from the craft store. Dollar Tree has one similar as well. I don't think these ones were from there, but I'm not sure. And I'm just going to put snow on here, and I'm just gently placing the stickers. Dollar Tree does have stickers as well, but placing those on, and then while I guess I decided to, I think my glue gun is heating up, so I decided to restring the twine, and I had to just put a little piece of tape on the end to do that because it was starting to fray. I could have grabbed a new piece of twine, but I just thought I'd use what they gave me, and I'm just trying to do it like it was when I got it. So I believe there was a knot, and then I just used a couple of natural colored beads. I thought about painting the one that it came with, but I had these in my stash. First I was going to do 3, and then I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know, it does look better with 3, 2, 1, I don't know. I decided to go with 2, and then just put another knot at the top. And now I'm using just a little bit of hot glue to glue on our snowflake, and that is the O. And this worked out perfectly because I did not have any O stickers left in this pack. And I was going to add the snowflake anyway, but then when I realized I didn't have the O, it worked out even more perfect. And actually, it looks like there wouldn't have been room. I was going to do the SNOW plus the snowflake, but there actually wouldn't have been room for that anyway. It all worked out. And then I'm going in with some matte Mod Podge because the stickers were a little too glossy for me. So I'm sealing it all in with some matte Mod Podge to tone it down, and then a little bit more antique wax, very little of it, on my stencil brush around the edges, a little bit over the whole thing, and a tiny bit on the beads. I'm not staining them. I'm just dirtying them up a little bit. I like it to look a little bit older. And then I did the sides and even the back because, you know, ornaments do turn around when they're on the tree. And I will be putting this on my tree. I like to make a couple ornaments every year. So I don't have a tree out right now to show you this, but I just have it standing up here. And I love how that one came out. All right, so this next one, this is also a sign from Hobby Lobby, but I did not get it at Hobby Lobby. I picked this up at a thrift store, and I'm pretty sure I got it for 99 cents or 49 cents because that's usually what I buy things for. And then this bag is from the Dollar Tree. As you can see, I've already used half of this bag. It was a 2-pack. One, I think, just said Merry Christmas on it. The other one had these trees. I love the kind of rustic-y colors and the brown paper. As I was pulling off the handle, I accidentally ripped a hole, but I was like, I think I have enough of it left to fit in here, and I did. I thought that covering it with paper would be easier than painting it and not getting paint on the frame because I liked the wood tone of this frame, even though we are going to add a little bit to it. So I got a couple edges of the bag straight and then fit that in there and just kind of creased where I needed to do the other two cuts. And I'm using my paper cutter because I just don't feel like I can cut super straight. I think I'm cutting straight until I'm trying to cut straight, and in a project it doesn't look all that straight. Okay, so we're going to put a coat of Mod Podge. I would have liked to do the iron-on method, but I didn't think I could get into all the corners. So I'm just going to place this in there, and then I have this, it's like a little rubber squeegee. This is also by Plaid. You could use like a credit card or something, but the rubber on it is really, really great. You still have to be careful to not tear the paper, but it worked excellent. And as you can see, as I'm pushing it, I'm kind of lifting up and scraping off any extra Mod Podge that was in there. As I smoothed it out, and I had I think one tiny wrinkle, but I was able to smooth most of it out. And then I have this liquid adhesive. This is from the Dollar Tree. Any glue that you have that you think would be fine would work. I'm just wanted something with a small tip, and my head repeatedly gets in the way, so sorry about that, but I'm trying to see what I'm doing. And I'm just taking some thin jute twine from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using my dotting tool once again. I just do a little section at a time because I needed the glue to really adhere and hold the twine. And so I'm using my dotting tool and this little other scraper tool, again, from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just pushing it into the edge. I just wanted to give it a border, make sure that all the space was covered in case the paper, didn't go all the way to the edge in one spot. Plus, I like the little subtle detail of the jute twine. And then I have this vinyl piece. You never see me use vinyl because, friends, I don't have a Cricut. But my dear friend Kendra at Late Night Creations sent me a little goodie box, and in there was some vinyl pieces, some stencils, some transfers. I'm not sure what everything's called, but you'll be seeing them in some DIYs. So thank you, Kendra. This was my first time applying one, and I did pretty good. And I am just slowly peeling it back, and then, making sure if something is not did not transfer, that I just laid it back down and pushed down a little bit more with my finger or my little scraper tool. And but you could use a stencil, you could use an image, you can use whatever you have at your disposal. But I put this piece on earth. See, I lost a little bit of that wreath, but don't worry, I got it on there. No problem. And this is a pretty simple sign. I wanted to tie in a little bit of the black. I didn't want it to be dark, but from the vinyl, so I'm just dry brushing with a little bit of black around the frame just to give it a little bit more depth, and like it subtly brings in a little black, but it's not like super obvious. And I kind of emphasize like the corners, and I don't know, but this is what I did. I didn't add anything else. That is it for this DIY. All right, so first up is one of these little house signs from the Dollar Tree. They've had these on and off for over the years. I honestly don't find them that often, but I did find one time, and I'm kind of bummed I only picked up one. But anyways, we're going to start by, I'm using my heat gun to get that sticker off, and look how easy that comes off. You can tell I had previously attempted and failed. Anyways, now I was like, can I just pop this back off? I've seen people do it, but I didn't know how easy it was. So I just kind of looked for a weak spot, went in, I think that's a putty knife, and just kind of slid it along, and then I used my heat gun. You can also use a hairdryer. I used to use my hairdryer until that broke, and I didn't want to replace it because I don't actually use a hairdryer on my hair. But that kind of just softened up the glue. Now it turns out, no, I was going to say there was some little nails in this. There wasn't any nails. It was all just glue. So I just used that to soften it up a little bit and kind of kept going around until I was able to pop that back off. I did that because I really liked the wood color of the frame, and I didn't want to get any paint on it, and I figured this would be easier than trying to like tape it off or just be really careful. You could also just cut some paper to size and put that in there, but I really wanted to paint it. So I popped it off and started picking off all of the paper and glue from the frame, and then I pulled off this paper. Now typically on these types of signs, well, I shouldn't know if I should say typically, but often the top layer is like a plasticky paper. So I peeled that off, and then I used a damp paper towel, let it soak on there for a minute, and then used my little putty knife scraper and started scraping that off. I got that layer of paper as well as a layer of glue. Occasionally you have to do this a couple of times in order to get it all off. Sometimes I just paint over paper as well, but I've been enjoying doing this. And then once it dries, go ahead and sand it down again if you need to get it all nice and smooth. I did pick up some new paintbrushes for myself. I'd been wanting some bigger ones, and finally did it. So I'm watering down my Waverly chalk paint just a little bit because it's at the end and it's a really kind of gloopy, gloopy gloppy. So I am just kind of dampening my paintbrush and then grabbing the paint. And I have it on that little like palette, my paint, I poured it out on a little palette thing. It would have been easier on like a plate, but that's just what I had nearby. And my paint was getting low and I didn't want to stick my paintbrush all the way down in there. So I'm going to give this a couple of coats. It did take a couple coats for me to get it just as smooth as I wanted it to be, but I also did the backside just because I accidentally got a little paint on the back and I wanted to clean that up a little bit, so I just did it the whole thing. Now I'm using some window clings. We're going to use these in a couple DIYs today. I have had them for a while. I don't know if they were from Walmart or Dollar Tree, but I love using window clings in my projects, and I just figured out my placement, and I'm putting some Mod Podge and getting off any fuzzies that made it there. And we're going to smooth that out, trying to push out all of the air bubbles under the window cling, and now I'm going to do the top part as well. And you have a little bit of wiggle room until the Mod Podge starts to dry and get tacky, then it's a little harder to move it. And I'm just adding a little snowflake. That was part of the window cling sign as well. I've got not much left from this set, but often those packs of window clings you can do multiple DIYs with, so it's a really great deal. And then we're going to just use some hot glue. Well, I'm showing you this because this is real life, so I don't want you to think that if you have struggles that you're alone. I went to use hot glue, but even though this was on the hot temperature setting, by the time I put the frame down, the glue had already cooled, like the surface was cool, so it just pulled back up. The glue was already dry here. So I'm just picking it off all the way around, and I'm going in with wood glue super glue, which is also from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just putting a little bit of that around. I didn't want it to like ooze out, so I just put little dots, and then I smudged it with my finger so that when I press these together it wouldn't like kind of ooze out of the sides. We're going to place our sign back on, and then I ended up putting a container, my container of acrylic paints on top just to weight it down. And this is how this one came out. You cannot even see the edges of the window clings. Not that that really bothers me, but I think it looks great. Sorry for the shadow on it. It's kind of hard because of the depth of the box. So for this next one, this is a clearance find from Walmart last year, but you could use other frames, something you've thrifted, something from the Dollar Tree. This one, I'm taking the sticker off. This one is a little bit harder to get out of the frame than the other one, but once again, I was like, this would be a lot easier. I really like the red frame. So I'm heating it up with my heat gun. This one did have a couple of nails in there as well, which I don't think I show. I did ultimately pull them out before I put it back together, but I was able to just press this frame out. I was worried that I was gonna like break something, but I didn't, and I knew that I hadn't spent very much on it because I got it on clearance at the end of last year. So I probably got it like 90% off is my guess. So yeah, we're just gonna pull that out. This picture is not particularly Christmassy to me. It's got some wreaths on the buildings, but once again, the top layer was kind of plasticky. You could just put some scrapbook paper down, however you wanna go about this. I'm scraping the hot glue around the edges and then getting the paper off. Then I did the same method I did with the last one, where I took a damp paper towel, laid that on there, scraped everything off that I could, and then I went in and sanded it to get it as smooth as I could and wiped off any dust. And then we're gonna give it a couple coats of white paint. Once again, I ended up doing the back side as well. I tried to like not get paint on the other side, but I feel like it always happens. And so I just painted it so that it didn't just look like there was drips of paint. And then I went in with a chippy brush and did a dry brush of that white paint on the red frame. I didn't want to paint the whole thing over again. These DIYs are a little bit more whimsical. I like the red. It's a little bit more of an orange red than I typically go for. So I just thought that the white was kind of, I don't know, made it blend in with everything a little bit better. And I really do like how that came out. Here I am. I got some more window clings. And then I have a decal that my friend sent me, my friend Kendra at Late Night Creations. If you don't watch her, you should. She was sweet and sent me some. So I'm once again just finding placement for everything. And I'm really trying to just use up these window clings, and I love the little presents. This snowman is holding presents. So it just kind of like works and all. So I'm first figuring out the biggest pieces. And then I decided that I needed to put this decal down first because I was going to be putting some Mod Podge down for the window clings, and I didn't know if the decal would work good with that because, you know, I'm not super Cricut savvy. So once that was in place, I'm now using some Mod Podge, once again, a little bit underneath, and then I go over top to smooth it out. If you're new here, my head often gets in the way of my crafting. I like the overhead shot because I feel like you guys can see it pretty good, but then my head is always in the way. I need to figure out different placement. I just kept holding the frame over it to make sure I wasn't going too close to the edge. If you are new, besides my head always getting in the way, welcome. My name is Leanne. I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. I use lots of Dollar Tree items, but as you can see here, I also use some Walmart clearance, Hobby Lobby clearance, thrift finds, that kind of a thing. So I hope that you consider subscribing to my channel, stick around, and see what else I have to share with you. I usually post about once a week. And yeah, so welcome. I'm so glad you are here. If you are new, say hello down in the comments, or if you're not new, say hello down in the comments. You know the drill. Leave the comments, give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. It helps me out so very much. I appreciate all those little things that help YouTube want to push my video out to other viewers, and that is how I grow my channel. So I'm added on the little snowflakes. Once again, we're going in with some hot glue here. Now this time I didn't really have a problem with the glue drying, but this piece didn't fit back in as smoothly. I knew that I was going to need to like hammer it, and I have a little rubber piece on the end of the hammer just to, I don't know, I was hoping that wouldn't not ding it up, but it wouldn't fit. So I pulled off the glue, and I thought, well, maybe this little bit of paint and all of that is the problem. So I just sanded down the edges a little bit. I didn't shave off like a lot, but I did just sand it, and then I sanded down in here, cleaned out any, glue or adhesive or pieces of paper that were stuck in there, and just sanded it down. And I did that until I could tell it was going to fit. We went back in with the hot glue, although I'll tell you what, this piece probably didn't need any glue because I did still have to kind of push it in there a little bit. So I know it is super secure and not going anywhere. But I love this one. Also has a hanger on it, so you can easily hang it up. I don't hang it up, but I might in the end. I don't know. I haven't decorated my home yet. Okay, so now I'm just using some little greenery pieces from my stash. I always save all of the little clippings because they are great for embellishing. And one of the little red berries pops off, but I add that back on, and yeah. So some of the hardcore, like serious DIYers, like will decorate their house this early just so that they can like show you everything displayed. I'm not that hardcore, and I decorate early. Like even before YouTube, I would decorate early, but I can't. Sorry guys. I'm just going to show you these guys, leaned up together. I don't have anything decorated. Okay. I mean, I do, but for fall. I have this little wooden snowflake. This is from Hobby Lobby, I think, but Dollar Tree usually carries them too. And I'm just going in with a paper towel and a little bit of paint. I didn't want like paint to get into all those little grooves and, build up. And I wanted it to dry quickly. So I just wiped it on and then hot glued that to the corner. And I thought this piece was really cute, and it will look very nicely displayed with the other one as well. All right, so for this last DIY, we're not going to use window clings, but we are using this metal ornament from the Dollar Tree. They often have metal and wood blanks, so you could do this with either one. We're going to take off the twine, which I intended to save to reuse at the end, but totally couldn't find it. It must have gotten moved or thrown away in the process of these crafts. So for the top little holder part of this ornament, I'm going to paint it. It does take a couple coats, So I'm just painting it, drying it, painting it. Just be mindful when using the heat gun with metal that the metal will get hot. And I didn't get it super close because I didn't want the paint to crack or anything like that. I was just trying to speed up the process. And then for the rest of the ornament, we're going to apply a nice thick layer of Mod Podge, and we're going to then let it dry. We're going to use the iron-on method if you're not familiar with that. It is an excellent way to attach fabric or paper to projects, and you don't get a lot of wrinkles, or any wrinkles really. So once that is fully dry, I'm attaching this fabric, which is from the Dollar Tree. I believe I did pick that up this year. It wasn't like in their Christmas stuff, but it's clearly Christmassy. And I apply some, or put down some parchment paper and iron it. I keep moving the camera there because, well, my iron was set on the place where my camera's attached. And just again, be careful, the metal will get really hot. I just use my household iron. A Cricut iron is great, but just want no steam. And that reactivates the Mod Podge, and the fabric will adhere nicely. I trimmed it down, and then I am using a sanding block, sanding away. This isn't as easy as it is with paper, but it did work. It did fray it a little bit, but it's really not that noticeable. And then there's a couple of spots that I saw were not adhered super great, so I went back in one more time and got in there with my iron. And then I'm using some antique wax and a damp paper towel for this Merry Christmas wood piece, which that's from the Dollar Tree from previous years. And I did it this way with a damp paper towel. I would have used a baby wipe, but I don't have any more baby wipes. I need to pick some up. But I wanted a really, really light stain. If you want it darker, you could put more on and not wipe it off right away. There's lots of different ways you can do that, but that's how I chose to. And then I'm just going to attach that with some hot glue. And I'm not sure how I'm going to display this piece yet. So I'm tying a knot at the top and then leaving the strings up top. I wanted it to hang forward, but that may change depending on how I use this. So my thought is you could use it as a giant ornament on a Christmas tree, or you can, what I'm thinking of doing is like attach it to the middle of a wreath, or you could also hang it on just like if you have any shelves with little pegs on it or that kind of a thing. So I didn't tie the ends at the top yet because I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. So I just pulled out from my stash a little garland piece. I think they're called garland ties from the Dollar Tree, or Hobby Lobby sells them. I trimmed it down, put on a bell, some red berries, and that was it for this one. All right, so first up, I have one of these wood cutouts, I guess, from Dollar Tree. They have these every single year, and we're going to start by cutting off the twine hanger, and I'm going to use some lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree to fill in the hole. I don't know if it was completely necessary with what we ended up doing. When I started, I wasn't totally sure what we were going to do. So I filled that in, let that dry, and then it gave that a little light sanding. And then I wanted to make a faux wood stain, so I have some water. I might have watered it down too much, I don't know, but it worked out fine, so I guess I didn't. And I'm just taking some brown acrylic paint that I had in my stash, and we're going to mix that in with the water. I'm using 2 different shades of brown. You can see the one I was kind of using the very bottom of the bottle. We're going to add a little bit more in here. There you go. But just trying to use them up and create a light stain. I wanted the wood to come through. All of these DIYs will be having some wood in them, and so we're going to use the same color scheme and color palette for all of them. So this paint that you're seeing here, we're going to use all across the board here. So we're going to paint that on, and this is watery. I'm going to brush it on and wipe it off with a paper towel. You could do that or not do that, depending on how dark you want it. You could water it down less. You could not water it down at all. Now I did notice where the spackling was that I had brushed off, it didn't really stick as well. So I was a little bit bummed by that, but I ended up going in with it just a little bit thicker, and we covered up and then you can't tell. And I'm going to do both sides just so that it looks like a finished product in the end, because, you know, that always makes it look a little nicer and a little less homemade. I don't mind the homemade look. I like the homemade look, but I think you know what I'm saying. All right, so now we're going to go in with some Mod Podge. I'm using, I think it's a matte finish. It doesn't really matter at this point here. And I wanted to give some texture to this tree, and I was trying to think about the different things I had on hand. So I grabbed myself a piece of tissue paper, gift wrapping tissue paper, and I'm just going to crumple it up so that we have lots of wrinkles in it. And as you can see, I put a nice thick coat of Mod Podge. We're not going for a smooth look here, so I wasn't worried about it. It would be really hard to get a smooth finish with tissue paper anyway with this method, just because it's so thin. And I'm just going to put some down there, and then a little bit, whatever's on my brush, kind of laying it, kind of tapping it gently. And I ended up doing 2 layers of the tissue paper. So I'm just using my heat gun to dry that. Not too much because the heat can actually reactivate the Mod Podge. But anyways, I'm just cutting off the pieces here and the edges, the extra on the edges, and we're going to apply more of it. I just wanted a little bit more. It wasn't as textured as I wanted. So I probably could have skipped the painting of the underlayer because we are going to paint on top. And but you know, either way, it worked out. I literally was figuring this out as I went. I was like, I knew I wanted to do a tree. I just wasn't totally sure how I was going to get the texture that I wanted. Anyways, once that's dry, you do want to let this completely dry. I'm doing this real speed right here, and then we're going to speed it up. But in the beginning, I was showing you, I was just doing it gently with sandpaper away from the board so that we're not pulling the tissue paper back up. And I'm going to go around the whole thing and do this. This gives a nice edge. When I get to the little spaces in between, I guess, the layers of the tree or the branches of the tree, I'm just going to take some scissors and snip in there so that I can get into the corners. And then I do end up switching to an emery board. This one is from Dollar Tree. The individual ones from Dollar Tree are better than like the 3-packs. The 3-packs are just so flimsy. But these emery boards do work really great for this, as well as the sanding block or sandpaper rather. Okay, so now we're going to go back in with more of that brown, and I'm trying to go to some of the thicker parts of that dish that I mixed in, like around the edges, to get a little bit more of a dense color. And this is all up to your preference. You can also go ahead and do green. And once that's dry, you want it dry. I'm using a chippy brush with just a little bit of white paint, and we're going to bring out all of those crinkled, textured edges or pieces. And we're just going to go over this to your liking. And then see, you can see the little wrinkles pop up there. And then I'm going to go a little bit heavier around the edges where kind of snow would lay on the branches. So it's more of like a rustic snowy tree, because obviously trees would be green, not brown. But once again, do this how you like. All right, so I wanted a stand for my tree. And I've got one of these wood blocks from the Dollar Tree in my miter box saw. I really am showing you very little of this. This was a very lengthy process. My head gets in the way over and over again. But the block is very solid wood. It is also like the height of the box. So at first my saw was not going in the grooves, which is kind of what keeps it steady and keeps you from chopping your finger off. But I did ultimately do this. I sawed a line across, but then I needed to widen it a little bit in order for the tree to get in there. So there's probably an easier way of doing this, probably like a power saw. And my husband did offer, I should have just taken him up on that. Not with a power saw, we don't have one of those, but he was offering to do that by hand. But I got it done, and that's what matters. But you can use some tumbling tower blocks, something else to build a stand, and then I'm just painting it once again with that brown paint, going over it a little bit thicker, and I did not wipe it off, I just let it dry. And I'm going to use Gorilla Glue here. I think it's a Gorilla Wood Glue, just down in there. And this was also a snug fit, so I'm just wedging it down in there. I could have done the base straight on, but I liked it at an angle, just personal preference. And then I'm going to take some red berry garland from the Dollar Tree. I think it's called berry garland at the Dollar Tree. It might be called something different at Hobby Lobby, but it is wired. So I'm just wrapping it around, and then I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue on the bottom. I did it down towards the bottom because I wanted the back to look decent if it was seen from the back. So I just didn't want it to like end like in the middle of the tree somewhere. And then we're going to use some hot glue to put in some Spanish moss. I think that's Spanish moss. It's messy, but it's pretty, so I use it. I also took that chance to put a little bit more glue down in the groove to just help secure it in there. But we're just tapping that on. Be careful you don't burn yourself. And then I'm going to give that a little bit of a trim here. And that was all I did for this one. I love how this came out. It's like a little, These DIYs are like subtle rustic with like the brown, a little bit of white, but just a little pop of red, which I love. All right, so for our next DIY, I have this piece of wood that was sent to me in like kind of like a friend mystery box challenge that I did with Kendra at Late Night Creations. And I'm not sure what that other, like what this originally was for, but just for your sake, if you want to recreate it, just a scrap piece of wood is fine. Dollar Tree even has various blanks. So lots of options for this, but this is what I had on hand. So I painted it with that little faux stain. These stencils from Hobby Lobby are fantastic. I now have 3 different sets. 2 of them have the Merry Christmas on it, but they even had another one that I didn't get. One I picked up years ago, and then I picked up 2 more this year. You'll see both of them in today's video. They're $2.99, but their Hobby Lobby has their Christmas stuff 50% off, so $1.50 for two stencils. I'm having trouble with my words. I'm going to blame it on the dental work I had earlier today, but nonetheless, we're going to stencil this on. So this was perfect for the size piece of wood that I had. I just taped it down with some painter's tape, and then I did hold down each spot to make sure that we didn't have any bleed through. I didn't put too much paint on my pouncer, and I loved how it came out. Absolutely wonderful. But I wanted to add a little touch, a little detail. So this is like Dollar Tree's version of washi tape. It's great. It's nice and thin. So I'm using it like painter's tape to create a couple of thin lines, which I just kind of have to eyeball the distance between the pieces. And then I did put some painter's tape on the edge because the wood was exposed a little bit and on the inside, so I didn't accidentally get any red on the rest of this. And once again, little pouncer brush, just a little bit of red paint. I'm using Crimson by Waverly, and just don't go too heavy because you don't want any bleed through. Peel it off, the tape off while it is still wet. And I loved this cute little detail, just a little hint of red stripes. Fully dry now because you don't want to sand it when it's wet. And I'm just roughing it up a little bit, kind of dulling down some of the edges and then wiping it off. You could also seal this with some Mod Podge or some DIY wax. I did not do that, but I may go back and use the DIY clear wax. I just kind of ran out of time. But I love how this one came out. It's simple, it's cute. It's got that pop of red, which I love. And yeah, love that one. Okay, so for our final DIY, this is one of those woodhouse pieces from the Dollar Tree. I've seen them, then I didn't see them for a while, then I saw them again, but this would also be easy to cut out of some scrap wood. I used my heat gun to help me get the sticker off. Just wanted to show that to you if you haven't seen that done. It helps a lot. And we're wiping on, or brushing on, wiping off, and I'm going to do the front, all of the edges, and I do the back as well. I may go back and make this a double-sided sign at some point. So here's the other set that I picked up from Hobby Lobby this year, and we're going to do some white snowflakes. And once again, don't go too heavy on your paint. This lends well if you're trying to do a little bit more of a rustic look as well. But these stencils I think are great. Just make sure that you clean them immediately and just gently with some warm water, a little bit of soap if you need it, and they clean up nicely and you can use them over and over again. I'm drying that because I didn't want to accidentally smear it. So I'm using the other stencil from that pack, and I'm doing them, a little bit overlapping, a little bit over the edge, so some of them aren't complete. And this is obviously just going to be to what you like, but I wanted to use the other stencil in that pack had some different designs in the snowflakes, so I wanted to include a variety, and like I said, just drying it in between so that I don't smear any of it. I hope that you are enjoying this video. Like I said earlier, if you are, please give it a thumbs up. Super simple way to help me out. So I needed to add a little hint of red to this DIY as well. So I'm using a dotting tool. You could also use the end of a paintbrush and just a little bit of red paint. I did go back and make some of them a little bit bigger, but I love just a tiny hint of red on these. Once again, letting it dry, sanding it down just to kind of just make sure it looks a little bit rustic in a way. And there's how that one came out, just that little hint of red. All right, so first up, I've got a sign. This is from Hobby Lobby that I picked up on clearance. You can find these on clearance all the time at Hobby Lobby, or thrift them, or an old sign maybe that you don't like anymore. And there's also signs like similar to this at the Dollar Tree. The reason I love these ones from Hobby Lobby is because they're usually more substantial and can stand up good on their own. But we're going to start by giving this a couple of coats of white. I'm going to do the sides and the top. We are going to cover the top a bit, but I wanted to make sure none of that writing came through. And I do end up taking the hanger off of the back as well. We're going to just use this as a shelf sitter since it's wide enough to be able to do that with. Once the paint is dry, I'm just using a glue stick and some scrap craft paper. I'm going for a little bit more of a vintagey Christmas theme with today's video, but you can change this up obviously based on your taste. So I had this little piece of craft paper. This is pretty thin, so the glue stick worked very nicely as far as not having wrinkles, although the iron-on method with Mod Podge would have worked. I did use my brayer to smooth that out. And then I'm just kind of creasing the edges. I'm going to give that a little bit to dry. And then I'm going to use sanding block very gently because this is thin paper, sanding away. I'm speeding this up, so I was doing it gently. And just to get some nice crisp edges. You can see there is a little bit of wrinkling there, but in the end, you cannot see that at all. But I did smooth it out just a little bit more. Okay, so I went into my stash. All of these ribbons are from Dollar Tree, but I did not buy any for this. I don't do a ton with ribbons because I don't do a ton of things that need like big bows. This particular ribbon here wouldn't be the easiest one to like tie up because it is like thicker. But anyways, I just pulled out some that I thought went well together. This one burlap ribbon, I'm just cutting off the wire because I didn't want the wired edge. And right now I'm just kind of guesstimating the size, but we're going to cut them into strips. The fatter ribbons, I'm just making them thinner. And then I have a couple of these really sparkly ribbons from Dollar Tree. They do shed horribly, but I'm gonna show you how you can solve that. And then I pulled out a piece of scrap ribbon from a bag. I literally save like not every scrap, but a lot of scraps because they do come in handy. So right now you see I'm just gonna be making like a Christmas tree. Initially I was just laying it out here to kind of get an idea of like my pattern that I wanted to do, trying to figure out how I wanted to lay them out. The burlap ribbon will blend in with the background pretty good, but I thought it broke up like all of the bright colors. So anyways, I'm just trimming them down, getting an idea for it, and then we're going to begin assembling our Christmas tree. I'll admit, when I was doing these crafts, I was having a hard time getting in the Christmas mode. So I put on Christmas music on YouTube, on my TV to kind of get me going. But I'm really excited for Christmas because I love Christmas. I love Christmas decor so much. All right, so I'm going in with some Mod Podge and we're just gonna build our tree. This ribbon is really, really thick. So it took me a little bit to figure out like how much like to put on the ribbon or on the base. But I just kept going. This is like majorly sped up. But I didn't want to put too much Mod Podge because I didn't want the craft paper to like curl back up. I probably could have gone back in with, if I had done the whole thing with Mod Podge and not the glue stick at the end, I could have gone back in with a piece of parchment paper and ironed it on. But that's okay. So I'm just going to build our tree and I just maintain the pattern that I had kind of created with it. These ribbons are different, but they go together. And then I'm taking a little bit of white paint and just kind of going over the edges. I wanted a little bit thicker, so I went back in here and I liked how it looked after I smeared it with my finger. So I did like a quick swipe. And yeah, you can do that or not do that. You can do totally different colors, whatever you like. But I love how this one came out. This was super fun and a great way to use up some ribbon that I have on hand. I always want to pick up ribbon, but I'm like, I don't know what to do with it because I don't know. What do you do with ribbon besides bows? Well, that is what I'm showing you in today's video. Okay, for this next one, we're going to use similar ribbons because I wanted to kind of make them all cohesive, all of the DIYs rather. So I'm cutting down this ribbon. Again, this is a pretty hefty ribbon. I'm using my paper cutter because I wanted really straight lines for this. And we're going to make ourselves a little ornament. I'm going to cut this ribbon down to the size that I want. For my words, I'm going to use some Scrabble pieces, buy some old games, at the thrift store. This was once a game that I owned and different things were broken on it, so I got rid of it, but I kept the pieces. But you could also use some little wood letters or whatever you want. You could put names. This would be really cute to do names for your family, but I just decided to put Noel, and then, which is also someone's name, but you know. And I just was kind of figuring out where I wanted to line them up. I'm using some hot glue, and it does go through just a little bit, so I just was picking it up so it wouldn't stick to the paper. But like I said, this ribbon is very thick, and which I thought made it good because it was a little bit stiffer, so it wouldn't like curl and stuff as an ornament hanging. But you could always put some ribbon on like a piece of cardstock if you wanted. And so for the top, we're just going to fold over the top. I'm just going to use a piece of twine. And I kind of wish I hadn't glued the twine, because then I could have adjusted it, you know, moved it around if I needed to. I wish I had just kind of hot glued the like end of the flap over, like where I'm going to put some hot glue right here. I wish I had just done that, but it worked just fine. But I thought this was a really simple way to make a little bit of a hanger. Could also thread on some little beads. That would be cute. I'm pulling out this little green sparkly bow from my stash. This is from the Dollar Tree. They seem to have them every year. But it was a little too bright. The silver was a little too silver. So I just took a little bit of brown paint, just one that I had in my stash, on a paper towel and smudged it on. And then I'm putting a little dab of hot glue because I'm going to need to trim off this twist tie, but that is what is holding the bow together. So I put a little dab of glue underneath, trimmed off the twist tie, and we're going to hot glue this to the top. I liked the green bow. I did have them in red, but I wanted to kind of, you can't see a ton of the green in the ribbon, and I just wanted to kind of bring that out. And then I just trimmed off my twine, burned off the fuzzies, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a knot here for the hanger for our tree. I don't have any trees up yet to display these on, although I might by next week's video. I might put up a small tree upstairs just for this purpose. But that's how that one came out, and I was thrilled with that one as well. All right, so for this last DIY, I have these cardboard tree forms. These are from Hobby Lobby. Get them now, 50% off. They also have styrofoam ones. I don't remember the price because these were the last two I had, but they came in a pack with several, and they were a really, really good price. So I am going to use this ribbon. This ribbon, like I said, very sparkly, a little messy, but that's okay. We'll clean it up afterwards. And at the top, I'm putting a lot of glue. And what I'm doing is I'm putting glue and I'm scrunching it as we go. You'll see, I'm just going to kind of let you see some of that. But that gave the tree a lot of texture. If I had just tried to wrap it smooth, I would have had gaps where you'd see the cardboard, and I loved the texture that this gave. So we're just going to continue going along. While you watch that, I figure I would mention my name is Leanne. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. I hope that you like what you see and you consider subscribing. Just hit the subscribe button and then turn on your notification bell. That'll pop up after you hit the subscribe button. That's just how you will, like how you're likely to have YouTube show you my videos in the future, but I enjoy sharing budget-friendly and easy DIYs here on this channel. All right, so when I got to the bottom of the ribbon, I kind of wrapped it around the bottom. I just wanted the edge to be fully covered, and then I did this also in a red as well. Now to seal in the Mod Podge, or seal in the glitter, I'm doing a heavy coat of Mod Podge. Now this will change the appearance a little bit, so another option is hairspray. I do that on a lot of Christmas items. I just picked up some glittery bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree, and I always just give them a coat of hairspray, and that helps attach the glitter as well. So if you don't want to change up any, the appearance at all. But I don't mind a little bit of glitter at Christmas time. I just feel like it looks so pretty with all the lights, but I did want to prevent it from shedding. And now once that was done, I was like, I kind of want it a little bit more vintagey. Like I said, I was kind of going for like an older rustic vintage look. So I'm just going in with a little bit of antique wax and a stencil brush, kind of getting the bulk of that off onto a paper towel and just kind of going around it. I wanted, I want the color still. I want still some of that glitter, but I didn't want it to be as bright and shiny for this particular DIY. So that is just an option. You could also use a little bit of brown paint, but I'm using my antique wax, and it worked perfectly, and I got the look that I was going for. So this definitely was the way to do it. And that's all I did for those trees. You could do a whole little village of them. Here you can kind of see the different textures, like the waves, the layers that, that I got when I was just kind of squishing it around as I was going. I don't really know how to explain it, but you got to see it. So we're gonna start out by making a base, and I will show you what it is a base for in just a minute. Actually, this is a support piece. We're using 2 tumbling tower blocks and 2 wood, wood cubes from the Dollar Tree. And I'm using some Gorilla wood glue, and I'm just smearing it with my finger so that I don't have any oozing out in between the cracks. I find that some glues, when they dry, even if they dry clear or you think you've wiped them off, that it's hard to paint over them. So I just wanted to be sure that that wasn't going to be a problem. You can use anything you have on hand. You're going to see what we're making. This is just what I had that I thought would work well. This does take a little bit longer to dry, so I'm putting some painter's tape around to hold it into place, but I think that that works better than hot glue in this situation. Now I have our base. This is a wood piece. This is was a natural wood color from Dollar Tree. I previously used this for a DIY. I often just reuse stuff, so because I make a lot of stuff for my channel. Originally I thought I was going to paint this brown. I kind of wanted to look like stain. You're going to see it in just a second. We'll change that again. But okay, so I've got this this galvanized snowman sign from Dollar Tree, and we want to make it stand up, so that's why we're putting all of this together. I'm using some super glue gel. Hot glue does not hold well on metal, so I'm using some super glue gel to get this on place. I used some painter's tape to kind of line up where I wanted it to be. I designed the support this way so that it really wouldn't be visible from the front, and I wanted to put it on before I painted this sign so that I could paint that piece as well to make it just blend in better. So as you can see, I've got a plate with a bunch of grays, whites, a little bit of black, and a little bit of brown, and I'm using a pouncer brush. First, you can see a lot of the pounced circles. It's okay, we're gonna take care of it. But I wanted it to be a different type of galvanized metal. So I went in a lot with the darkest color, and I'm using my heat gun partially. I didn't want it, didn't need to be totally dry, and you got to be careful because obviously it's on metal, so I had it on a low heat. But I also I didn't want the paint to be fully wet because I didn't want these colors to just completely blend together. But you can see I will move forward and not fully have it dry in between each one. And I'm just going to layer. The brown and the black is going to come in sparingly. We're going to blend it in a second here. You'll see I'll switch from using the brush, this sponge brush, to you can't really see it in my hand, but it's a scrunched up piece of saran wrap. And I did this a couple different times to help blend it in. It takes away the circle shapes, and it just worked really well. I did try to go with lighter colors, either the light gray or the white around the perimeter, and then blend that in. I did use a couple different pieces of saran wrap. I cut a piece and then just cut it into like little squares. But I just kind of kept going back and forth until I had the color look that I wanted. And I did do this for the back, and I did do it over the little wooden piece that we attached as well, just to make it blend in better. But I didn't share that all with you. All right, now we're gonna move on to embellishing our snowman. I have these wood planks from the Dollar Tree. I'm using my miter saw box to cut them down. You can also probably use a straight edge and a sharp blade very carefully and score it, and it'll eventually cut through. They're not thick pieces. I'm just gonna sand down the edges, and then I did cut another piece to be the bottom. You could also make this out of popsicle sticks if you wanted. This was probably not, this didn't fit in there, so that's at an angle, but my hand was far away from the blade, so I went for it knowing I wouldn't lose a finger. But as you can see here, we've got ourselves a little hat, and you could also do this out of felt or something else. I think I forgot to say from the beginning that I'm really going for a little bit more of a vintage traditional feel in these DIYs today. So I thought about doing the brim of the hat slanted like you see, but I thought straight across would be a little bit more traditional looking, and that's what I was going for. So I'm using a super glue gel, which is always nerve-wracking for me, and a little bit of wood glue, and we're going to paint this black. I did give this 2 coats, and I'm going to paint it from the front and the back, but we're going with a very basic traditional looking snowman. I'm doing no face on my snowman, but you of course could do that. You could paint your snowman white if you wanted. At this point, I'm realizing I had painted that brown, sanded it down. We're back to the base, obviously, you can see here. And I didn't like the look of it. So I'm going to paint it black. Easy to do, just repaint it, just giving that a coat or two to give that nice coverage. And then I pulled out two little stems from some wire, from some florals rather, and I'm painting them black. I am also going to Mod Podge that to help seal in the paint so it doesn't flake off. But those are going to be our little stick arms. I did also Mod Podge our snowman, and I don't think I shared that with you. But on metal or glass, I would definitely recommend it, sealing it in. It's helpful on other items too, but especially those kinds of things. And once again, we're going to go for a very vintage style, traditional looking snowman. So I have some red, just like ribbed ribbon in my stash. And I'm just gluing that so that it lays the way I want it to make our little scarf. So I just kind of folded it up at the corner there to give like little pleats so that the scarf would lay the way I wanted it to. And then we're going to trim that off. I didn't do any fringe. I didn't feel like that would work well with the scarf or with the ribbon. I figured it would just fray. We're going to put a strip of red around the base of our snowman hat. I just kind of kept looking up pictures of like vintage snowman images. I really loved that look, and you could put little pine cones, greenery, all sorts of things. But I remembered I had in my stash these cute little holly berries and leaves. I was gonna say poinsettias, and I thought this was so cute and very traditional. This is a pack from Hobby Lobby, and I just hot glue that to the center. And again, using a little super glue gel and some hot glue to attach this on. I purposefully made the lid on that, the gap at the top of the bottom of the hat so that it would rest on like that, and I would have a place to attach it. And then we're attaching the arms on with a little bit of super glue and a little bit of hot glue and some wood glue and super glue to attach this whole thing to the bottom. I thought about using actual sticks on the snowman, but I was afraid they would break too easily when I tried to store this away. You could just do hot glue on the arms and then kind of peel them off to pack them away and reattach them each year, because hot glue doesn't hold. It holds fine, but it would come off in when it was packed up. Anyways, I hope I'm making sense. I feel like I am rambling today, but that is my finished little simple snowman. I thought he was super cute. Let me know what you think down in the comments. All right, so up next, this is another sign that I had previously DIY'd. I think it was from Hobby Lobby, but you could use some signs from Dollar Tree as well. I think this one would be really cute in like a set of 3, but I only did 1. So I'm going to paint this white. I'm going to paint the whole thing white at first, just because the border was already black, and we're going to paint it red, but I was afraid that the black would come through too much on the red, and I would end up needing more coats of that to get the color I want. So I'm using crimson. My paint, this one is like so goopy. I don't know if you can even see it, but I put a little bit of water in and shook it up, which was fine. And then suddenly this lid started to leak, and there you go. Not sure what happened there. We're going to clean up our mess, and then we're going to come back to it. But I didn't water the paint down a lot, just a little bit, because it was just feeling very, very chunky. And this is why, unless you were going to do a ton of crafting, it's a good idea to get small containers of colors so that you don't have the same color for too long. So the frame of this piece has a little lip on the front as well as the sides. So I'm just using a tiny, tiny paintbrush. This is very sped up, and I'm going to give a couple coats of red around this little thin border along with the outside edges. If you're new here, I just want to say, hey, welcome. My name is Leanne, and I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on my channel. So I hope that if you are enjoying this, you will subscribe to my channel and make sure your notification bell is turned on so that you are notified every time I post a new video. I do a lot of Dollar Tree DIYs. I repurpose stuff. I do thrift flips, anything I can really get on a budget, and I try to keep the DIYs simple and, of course, fun. All right, so once that is done and drying, I've got one of these snowflake ornaments, wood ornaments from Dollar Tree. We're going to fill in our hole using the lightweight spackling from Dollar Tree, and I'm using a little tool to just kind of scrape out in between the grooves of the snowflake. Once that was all dry, I just gave it a light sanding, and we're going to go in with some more of the crimson. So once again, I think this DIY would look really cute in a set of like 3. and either do different color snowflakes, maybe the base the same, or different shaped snowflakes would be really, really cute. I have 2 different shapes on hand, but I'm sure you could buy more. Anyways, there it is finished. And now we're going to glue this on. Once again, I'm using the super glue gel. I don't know why I was really into that in this video, but normally I don't like to use it because it scares me and I glue myself to things. But the super glue gel is better than the regular super glue because it doesn't run the same. Just make sure you don't put on too much so that it's oozing out. But I needed something with like a nice fine tip, so it worked well for this. And we're just going to attach that to the front. You could totally leave it just like this. I had considered that, but I decided I wanted to do a little addition. I was showing you like a red and white cord would be really cute on there, but I wanted to bring in a little bit more rustic, just a hint of the jute. My DIYs don't all match necessarily in today's video, but they all kind of have a similar feel of like just, I don't know, traditional, vintage, which I don't know. Let me know. Maybe I nailed it. Maybe I didn't. I was also showing you that these little white snowflake stickers from Dollar Tree, they've got some glitter on them, would have been cute and fit perfectly in the center of the snowflake. But anyways, I made a little jute finger bow. There we go. Hot glued that to the side and trimmed down the edges of the tails. And that's it for this one. Like I said, I think it would be very cute in a set of 3, and you could maybe take away the jute. But let me know what you would do. All right, so for our last DIY, I have this ornament I picked up a year or 2 ago from the Walmart for only 98 cents. I do think I paid full price for it, but I'm not positive. And then this is a sign from Dollar General for $1. It originally had a farm animal on the front that I previously took off and used for another DIY. And I wanted to include these, bring these 2 things together. So our ornament has this hole, and it's not very easy to just cover up with a bow because of the location of it and the word and all of that. So I'm going to show you how I decided to disguise this. So I filled the hole in, and while we're letting that dry, I'm just going to go quickly over the letters with the crimson paint just to make it a slightly different shade of red. Not really necessary, but that's what I did. And then once the, what is it called? Lightweight spackling is filled, or is all dry and sanded down. My head's going to get in the way a couple times here, I think, but I'm going in with the palette that I used on the for my snowman, and I'm just going in with a little bit of white and then trying to just blend it in. Like the white kind of stuck out a little bit, so I'm adding in a little bit of brown around the edges, but then I'm adding what I'm putting in different parts, not just up at the top that I was trying to mask, because I wanted it to look a little bit more natural. So I was just kind of trying to blend the colors that were there, and yeah, let me know what you think. Did I do a good job with this? I just kind of kept going until I liked how it looked, and then I went in with lightly with a baby wipe and just kind of blended it in a little bit. You could also just use like a damp paper towel, but in the end, I thought it did a pretty good job at covering that up. So then I just wanted to attach this, and you could, I guess, do this a few different ways, but I'm using a couple small popsicle sticks, a good amount of hot glue, placing that down in the center, adding some more hot glue, pushing those popsicle sticks back together, a more like hefty amount of hot glue, and we're just going to put our ornament on top. I thought this was like the perfect fit. I didn't change the little chicken wire frame at all. I just loved it, but I did want to do a little bit of embellishment, so I'm using just scrap pieces of floral. It's like greenery, sparkly, dark green, and I'm just hot gluing that. And then we're going to use a burlap bow from Dollar Tree. This was in their fall stuff, but it really wasn't, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, burlap is not fall specific. And then we're going to hot glue that in the middle. I do add a few more pieces of greenery just to kind of, I don't know, I didn't want it to be too specific and like matchy. This would be cute hung on a little hook. I might actually hang this on my tree. It's like not too, it's a larger ornament, but it's not too large. But I love how this one came out. I was very pleased actually with all 3 of these, so I hope that you enjoy them. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. That's a very, very simple way at helping me out. All right, so for this first DIY, really the main DIY of the video, the rest are going to kind of be some makeovers. I have this wreath from Walmart. They have these every year. I think it says it's $3.98. And then I have various picks and scraps and stuff. I did pick up these red berries from Dollar Tree because I did not have any left in my stash, but everything else I already have. And here's where the inspiration came for this DIY. This wreath, I found it is almost $100. Guys, wreaths are expensive, but this fit my vintage vibe, my vintage feel that I'm going for. And we're going to start by fluffing this wreath. Now, I picked up this wreath last year because I found it after Christmas, probably 75% off. So I think I paid like $1 for it. These wreaths are great. I use them on the front of my house, on the front windows as well. And they're nothing special, but they're not super sparse. And they really are a good wreath, especially for the price. Typically, they sell out early. Last year, I was shocked that I found one after the season was over, but if you can do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my tips and tricks for saving money. I wanted to do some new stuff on my porch, but I didn't want to go out and buy a lot of stuff. And I spent, I don't know, I'd probably have to figure it out, like under $10, maybe like $10 this year on my porch. So anyways, we'll get to that in a moment. I've got my wreath, and a lot of times I like to wire things in because then I can take it out. But I, first of all, love this wreath. And I was using scraps. There was no way I was going to wire all of this in. So I kind of went back and forth to the inspiration picture, and I happen to have the lamb's ear and various greenery and sprigs and all of that. So I'm starting by kind of like spacing everything out to make sure that I don't run out of each piece, and then I go back in and fill it in. I'm using my hot glue gun. I do put in some finger protectors here in a minute, which I highly recommend. I'm hot gluing some of those leaves together to make them lay the way that I want to. At first I was just kind of shoving them in there, but then after a while I tried to find a spot to glue the items to. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about in a second. I don't make wreaths. I've made very few wreaths on my channel. I've made very few wreaths in my life. But this wreath was so much fun to make. So if you feel like you're not super creative or can't come up with something on your own, just look for pictures on Pinterest or on your favorite store's website, or when you're shopping, snap a picture on your phone and use that as your inspiration. I just kind of kept going around adding things. I literally just used things that I had on hand. I picked up this wreath last year on clearance for the purpose of being able to make a wreath this year. And that is going to be my first tip. So we're going to do a few little tips and tricks. But my first tip is to go shopping, if you can, the day after Christmas. If you are lacking in your decor this year, just do without it. Just do without it and plan to go get it after Christmas. I pick up a lot of things, not a lot, but I pick up things every year. And it would be things like a new wreath, whether it's a done up one or one that is already or is like this that I wanted to add things to. I usually pick up Christmas lights every year. This last year I picked up Christmas hooks, which was super handy. By the way, the Christmas lights, I like the old-fashioned warm glow ones, not the LED ones. And, sometimes they just stop working while they're packed away. So every year I pick up a couple boxes just in case. If there's something in particular that I'm wanting to add something in my decor to, something to my decor, I just look for that afterwards. Now, obviously, after Christmas, the pickings are less. You do have to go like the day after Christmas because stuff disappears quickly once it hits 75 to 90% off. But that is my first trick. I always have a list of things. There's some things I look for every single year. I always get white tissue paper because white tissue paper can be used all year round, but they have it marked with a Christmas label, so they mark it down. If you do a lot of gift giving, pick up some bags and wrapping paper for the following year. But whatever your staples are, and then if there's something lacking, our Christmas tree that we use to this day, we picked up 1 year after Christmas. The day after Christmas, it was a floor model. We got a wonderful deal on it, and we're still using it. That was 15 years ago, probably 15 years ago. So maybe even more, maybe 17. But anyways, that's a little tip or trick for you. I picked up some new bows. I'm going to show you just a couple snippets of things I put on the outside of my house, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So I'm turning the wreath, I'm looking, I'm poking, I'm prodding, I'm moving stuff. And then I did step away from this and go back to it the next morning just to see if there was anything else. It's kind of like tweezing your eyebrows. If you look too closely for too long, you might tweeze the whole thing off. Sometimes you gotta just stop, take a step back, and take a look and see that it's perfectly fine. So I did that with my wreath. Whenever I could, I did clip here a longer stem. But yeah, okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about what's coming up. This is going to be our main DIY. I hope that you guys are pleased with how this came out as much as I am. I mean, it's okay if you're not because I don't really care. It's going to be on my front door, not yours. But I want you to see that even if you're not super great with florals, because trust me, I'm not, I was impressed with myself, okay? I'm just going to say it. I was a little impressed with myself. But we're going to also just take some things that I already had on hand and freshen them up, give them a whole new facelift. So I bought the red berries. I bought a can of red spray paint, and I bought myself a doormat. So I spent $10 to $15. Fantastic. All right, so these berries came bundled in threes. At first, I put them in groups of threes, and then I wanted to do some of them individuals and some of them groups of twos. And what I tried to do was bend over the floral wire. At least I did that in the individuals. I don't know if I did it for the two, just to create a little more surface for the hot glue to adhere to, so it didn't just drip off. That's what I was doing there with those individual ones. Anyways, I didn't even use a whole pack of red berries either. I just kept going until I liked the way that it looked. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Leanne. I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs, decorating on a budget. Here on this channel, I try to keep things real. I keep them user-friendly. You don't have to be an expert. I am not an expert. You don't have to be a professional crafter. I am not a professional crafter. I mean, I do have a YouTube channel, but that's because they let anyone create a YouTube channel. I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on my future videos. So here's an up-close look at how this wreath came out. I will show it to you on my door in just a minute, but I absolutely love it. Can I say it enough? I don't usually brag on myself, and I'm really not, but I actually fully accomplished what I set out to do, and that's a good feeling. All right, so we're headed out to my garage. Sorry for the lighting here. I have these pots that hold the trees that you see in the back there. I got these from my mom's neighbor when she was moving like 15 years ago. Okay, I've had them forever. The last few years at this current house that we are in, they have been in full sun outside. And so my trees here, kind of hard to tell in this lighting, but they look a little bit more blue, like a blue spruce than a pine tree. Okay, they're a little bit light. So we're going to freshen them up. And I wanted to freshen up these pots. I had previously painted them white. We're going in with some red spray paint. Make them pop from the porch to the road. I like the bright red. I like traditional. I like vintage. Yeah, that's my vibe, guys. I don't know if vintage and traditional are the same thing, but I'm like vintage, traditional, classic when it comes to Christmas. I'm not super into modern. Anyways, we're going to give this, I did end up giving it 2 coats of this red spray paint. This was like $5 or $6, and I'm using it on a couple projects, and then I have some left over. So super budget-friendly way to update your decor. Then for the trees, I'm going to go in and flock them with a little flat white spray paint. Just little puffs you can see here. You can do as much as you want, as little as you want. I'm not really into a lot of flocked trees, but I liked this look, and it's not going to clump off, and it just kind of freshened up the tree. So I'm going to get another couple years out of these. But I do use these on my front porch every year, and our porch gets a ton of sun. And then I remembered, I forgot to show you the before of this, but you're going to see, so you'll see it in a minute. I have this sled. I picked this up at a thrift store for, I want to say like $1, maybe $2. And it has this cute vintage snowman on the front. And I was tempted to just redo the whole thing, but I couldn't get away with, I couldn't do anything to that precious snowman. So I decided to paint the runners with that red spray paint as well, just to freshen it up. The wood is a little bit of a yellowish color, which it still is on the front, but this just really freshened this up. So I had bought this sometime over the summer at a thrift store and hadn't done anything with it. And I was like, this is going to be so perfect on my porch. So just gave it a couple of coats, and the lighting changed because I shut the garage door. My husband suggested that because the wind was making the paint spray off a little bit from where the cardboard was. All right, so now we're going to decorate. I'm not going to drag this part out. I really want to show you just what I did to use the stuff I already had on hand. The day I did this, it was hot. I got hot out there in the sun, so I put on shorts and a t-shirt. But I have this, it's almost like a plasticky garland from Dollar Tree Plus. I bought it last year. I want to say they were $3 each. I bought 2 of those, and I already had nails on the top of the door frame for that, so that was easy to hang up. And then I had these plastic bulbs, also from Dollar Tree Plus, that I picked up last year. But they're the big bulbs, but they are plastic, so I don't have to worry about them breaking. But I love this garland. It gives off very vintage vibes, and it looks perfect with my wreath. But we're just going to hang those up. You don't have to buy new all the time, and build up over the years. I didn't have anything across my door for many, many years. Last year I picked them up, and I'm using them again this year. And then my husband is out here. This is another day. I'm wearing his slides. Anyways, that's besides the point. He's out here helping me finish these up. So I'm just showing you, the trees were in a little pot, and I just put them in the bigger pot. There's rocks already in there weighting it down, and I used some bags to kind of help keep them from moving around. And then I have pieces of that white fleecy fake snow, and I just wrap that around the base of the tree to cover up the bags and rocks and all of that. I had to take all of my lights off because I had to spray paint them. Plus, one of the set of lights wasn't working anymore. So here I am putting on another string of lights. Just very simple, but I like lights. I like the glow. I like all that. So I did all clear lights outside my house, but I put them on as many things as I could. I fluffed the tree, straightened it out, made it sure it was nice and sturdy. And then I had these poinsettia picks that I had cut apart years ago. I think they were originally from the Dollar Tree, but I thought this added a really nice classic look, and I just took the individual ones and shoved them in there. So this was just stuff that I had in my stash, but the difference of the red pot and a little bit of white spray paint, which I already had on hand on the trees, made these have an entirely different look than they did before, and I absolutely love how this came out. So I did remember one other thing I had picked up. My husband's moving this in place because it was too heavy. I picked up this 5-foot tree, or was it a 4-foot tree, from Dollar Tree Plus. They are only $5 if you can find them. We trimmed down the base of it to fit inside this white bucket I had. This is a DIY I had done for fall, and I just took all that stuff out, put that in there. We weighted it down with some rocks, and I'm just going to put a string of lights around these. And at first that was all I was going to do. It's a pretty decent tree. It's not like the most full tree, but it's not as sparse as like their itty bitty, 12-inch, 11-inch trees that they have. But I ended up just going back into my garage and seeing what else I had in the totes. And lo and behold, I had some little Christmas balls. So I went into my house, dug out some, Christmas tree hooks, put them on. And all you got to do is just make sure that you really pinch the metal hooks closed, both around the ball and on the branch, to make sure that they're not going to come off, because this is obviously out in the elements. The tree's wobbling quite a bit there. I actually went back after this and redid the rocks at the bottom in order to make it more sturdy. And I didn't have another piece of the white fluffy stuff to put around the bottom to cover the rocks. So I actually just took a white garbage bag that I had pulled Decor out of and it just looked like white, and you can barely see it because it's underneath. And I covered up the rocks with that. And then I also had a red velvet bow in my stash. I had 2 of them actually. So I put one on my mailbox and I put one on the top of this tree. Those are another thing that I often pick up at the end of the year when they're marked down. Even sometimes Dollar Tree marks down their seasonal stuff. Believe it or not, sometimes you can get it 50% off. But I put on the velvet bow, and I didn't show you me doing the ornaments, but I did do that as well. All right, so I'm hanging up the wreath, one of the last steps here, and it really matches great with the garland around the door frame. I just was so excited about that. I just attached a little piece of twine, tied it on the back, and that's how I hung it up, and I have a command hook on my door. And then I wanted to show you, these are the wreaths I put on my windows in the front of the house, which I don't show you hung up because I didn't want to show you my whole house, but I switched out the bows. I picked them up last year when they were 75% off because the other ones, as you could see, were quite faded. And here is our porch. All I did was buy a couple of inexpensive items, did one DIY, and then a couple of sprucing up / flipping of items I already had on hand. And I love how this came out. Let me know what you think. All right, so for this first ornament, we're going to use this metal word joy. This came in a 3-pack from the Dollar Tree. I think it has joy, believe, and welcome maybe. But I'm going to paint it. I think I'd already previously painted it, which is why it wasn't just a plain metal. But we're going to paint it red. I'm just using an acrylic paint. The sponge brush, like doing this pouncing, seems to work better than brushing on this type of material. I'm using a heat gun to dry it in between. Just be careful because if it's too hot, it can make the paint tacky and it can obviously make the metal hot. But I gave it 2 coats on both sides just so that if the ornament turns around, it looks pretty from the back, even though you won't be able to read it, obviously. And we're going to just also give that a coat of Mod Podge. Paint tends to chip off of metal. So the base for my ornament is this beaded ornament ring wreath. I don't know what you call it, but it is from Hobby Lobby. And I don't remember how many came in a pack, but it came in multiples, and Hobby Lobby Christmas is at least 50% off. And then I marked on the beads with a pencil just to know where to put the glue. They do turn, so I had to be very careful. You could also, I didn't want to put the glue on the word because I was afraid it would harden pretty quickly because metal is cooler, but you could use like super glue gel would work really good for that as well. And then I just have some Christmas greenery scraps, and I'm just kind of gluing them together to make a little bit of a, I don't know, garland or swag type of thing at the top. Once again, the beads turn, so I helped secure this to the word a little bit so that the beads wouldn't turn and then the greenery wouldn't be like in the right place. And then I made a little bow out of some red raffia. I'll show you that later because I'm going to do the same on another one of the ornaments. And I'm hot gluing that to the center. And that also helped kind of keep the beads in place as well. And I love how this one came out. It's so sweet. It looks a little vintagey to me. Let me know what you think. It's a good size without being like too big, but I love the bright pops of red. I love traditional colors when it comes to Christmas, so I was thrilled with how this one came out. For this next one, I have this, I think it was just called like a hanging decor or something from Hobby Lobby, their patriotic summer stuff. When I got it was just like 90% off, so I paid very little for it. I actually got a couple of them. I previously used one in another ornament DIY video. But I pulled the bead off and it was already red, but I wanted it brighter red. And then I was like, actually, I want to dull it down a little bit. So I went in with some gold metallic paint and I'm just using a baby wipe and I'm just kind of like, well, you see what I'm doing, like rubbing it on a little bit. So it ends up being like a little bit textured, not really smooth. And I just had this on a wooden skewer. That's kind of a handy way to paint beads rather, more specifically. And then moving on to the ornament itself, I'm going to start by sanding off the word best I can because I'm going to paint this with just some white paint and I'm using acrylic paint. So I knew it wouldn't cover as good as like a darker color. So I wanted to sand that down first. And this did take a couple of coats. I could have used my Waverly chalk paint, but I'm getting pretty low on that. But I just gave this a couple of coats. And then once that was done, I went in with my Hippie Crafter paint markers. I have not used these, I think since like, it's been almost a year. I kind of forgot about them. Now I had used a lot of my greens previously, so I didn't have a lot of ink left in them, but I'm gonna just do a sketch kind of a Christmas tree or of a pine tree really. You could also use a small paintbrush. I am speeding this up a little bit, but I ended up making the trunk a little bit wider in the end, but I just did the little kind of like, you know, I don't know, elementary way of making a little pine tree. And then I went back in and kind of filled it in. And then we're going to go in with another shade of green and just make sure that you're drying it in between. It is paint, even though they come in a marker. But I love the paint markers because it's really easy to kind of control, whereas a paintbrush can be harder. But if you use a good small paintbrush, I think you could do it easily with that too. So here I am going in with like another shade of green, making the trunk a little bit bigger. You don't have to do this perfectly. This one is really supposed to kind of look like a hand-painted, handmade ornament. I think these ornaments would be really great as little tags, like on the top of gifts. And I'm going in with a little bit of white here as well. But I love making a couple ornaments every year for our tree. It's just kind of something fun to have. But they also make really great gifts. And then I'm going in with a yellow marker, and I didn't like for my star, and then I didn't like it, so I went in with this a little bit more orangey one, and it was nice, but then afterwards I remembered I had this like puff paint or fabric paint. This is from Hobby Lobby, and I had picked up a few colors when they had them on clearance. They were only 49 cents each. And so I went in and did the star with this, and I really liked how that came out. It has a fine tip fine tip on it, but then it does kind of come out a little bit. So instead of just continuing to pour more on, I used my little skewer to kind of spread it out very carefully, making sure I still had all of the points and so that it actually looked like a star. And then we're going to put our bead back on. You can put like a little bit of glue or tape at the end of the twine to help feed it through. I just wet my fingers, and so then dampening the twine, and that helped just kind of make a little bit of a point to it and twisted it through as I went through the bead. I love how this bead came out with the red and then the gold on top. I thought it was really pretty and muted. And then we're just gonna tie a knot once again at the top of that ornament, and you can kind of see, I wanted to show you the ornaments on the tree, but obviously there's a lot of like lighting and shadowing, but I still think it looks pretty and gives you a pretty good idea about it. This one is not a big ornament, but it is a little bit longer. Anyways, love how this one came out. All right, so for our final DIY, I have this Christmas tree ornament. This is from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take my wire cutters and we're just going to snip off some of this star. It's not perfect, but in the end, it actually worked out really perfect. You couldn't tell, but you can smooth it out more if you wanted to. I was planning on having a bow at the top that was going to cover all of it, which isn't how it worked out, but in the end, you still can't see it. So I sanded down at the edges, and we're going to put a nice coat of Mod Podge. Now, I am deciding to do both sides of this because, once again, it's an ornament, and it could turn, or you could see it from different sides. So I just thought to make it look pretty, we would go ahead and do both sides. So I'm going to do a good coat, not an overly thick coat, but a good coat of Mod Podge on both sides of the ornament, and then we're going to let this dry completely. And then I went to my craft paper. I had a hard time with that word, and I have this rustic Christmas pack from Hobby Lobby that I had picked up on, I think when it was like half off a while ago, and so I didn't pay very much for it, and there's a lot of paper in there. They're smaller pieces, but it works for most of my crafts. And we're going to do the iron-on method for Mod Podge, or yeah, with Mod Podge. Is it the iron-on method for decoupaging? Is that the way to say it? I don't know. But you want to steam, an iron with no steam, a piece of parchment paper, and you just lay that on top and smooth that out. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Now, heating it up will reactivate the Mod Podge, and you'll have a seamless, it'll adhere seamlessly. Now, I'm trying the lighter method to burn off the paper. I've done this before, but I struggled a little bit with this one, so I'm gonna go in and trim it off more and then do it again. I'm gonna show you the process, but I'm gonna explain to you what I would do if I were you to do it differently. I think the reason I had a hard time with it is because the paper was thicker, and I also had both sides. So I think I would next time do one side at a time. You know, use the iron-on method on one side, burn it off, then do the other side. But it ended up working. I just kind of burned it off, and then like as it was burning, like tapped it with the lighter to get the paper to like disintegrate and fall off. And I just went that around and did the whole thing. You could also use the sandpaper method or trace it out to the exact fitting. I feel like I'm not good at that, so I never use that method. But just use this method with caution, okay? And then I'm gonna just go ahead and use the iron one more time because some of the corners hadn't stuck really well, so I just wanted to make sure it was on there really good. And then I'm gonna use this pokey tool. I don't know what it's called. I'm gonna call it a pokey tool. I got it from the Dollar Tree, and I poked the hole back open. And then I am feeding both ends in and putting the ends through the loop and tying a knot. And this way the ornament will be hanging straight on. If I just tied it in a knot, it would have turned the ornament. So that's why I decided to do it that way. And here is that red raffia that I used on, the first DIY. And I'm just showing you, I'm making a tiny little finger bow. So it was a little bit challenging, but I just took my time. This is like majorly sped up, wrapped it around my fingers, took another piece. Now the raffia is pretty sturdy, and I could tie a knot in it, but it can also break on you. So when I'm gonna attach this, I'm gonna just use hot glue right there, and that'll also help hold that on. I didn't put a bow on both sides because I really do have a front and back to this, but this way the back side with the paper at least looks finished. I love traditional looks when it comes to Christmas, so I love this like rustic vintage feel, and I thought this was really cute. Let me know which one of these ornaments is your favorite. Do you make ornaments every year? Is that something your family does? I absolutely love it. I have ornaments on my tree from my childhood that my mom gave me when she was downsizing, gave to several of my sisters, well, all of my sisters, we got to pick some. Anyways, I love having those passed down ornaments on my tree.
All right, well, that is gonna do it. If you made it to the end, please leave me a Christmas emoji of some kind down in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.